Hey, welcome. I'm Tom Sinclair. Welcome to what's the name of this show? Oh yeah, that's right. Streaming Idiots. So glad you're here with us today. We got a lot of folks here with us live in chat. Thank you for taking time out of your day to show up, and a few folks watching us later on YouTube. We're delighted that you've popped in, and hope you'll show up and watch with us live one day, Wednesdays at 3 o'clock Eastern in the U.S. And that you'll also subscribe. Just hit the subscribe button down there, and you'll get a notice periodically that we've posted another show. We post our shows on YouTube on Wednesday afternoons, right after we do the show. Obviously, we couldn't do it before the show. Yeah, you're thinking right now, this guy is weird. Sorry about that. Kind of a weird day today. One of the main concepts behind this show is that one guy with one PC can do one awesome broadcast. You don't need a room full of PCs. You don't need a $10,000 PC. A $10,000, can we say that word? Okay. You don't need a $10,000 Tricaster. You can do it with PC that you've bought or built or had me built for you, whatever your choice may be. But you can do it. And as soon as I say that, I'm I'm looking over here on a project that I've got going on. Yeah, Jill's correcting me in the chat room. One girl, one PC, one awesome broadcast. Sorry about that. Thank you, Jill. I've got a project working on right now with a couple of real small rack mount PCs that I want to use as Skype PCs to bring them in to the main show and begin to pull in some more guests. So we'll see how that project goes. It's a little dependent on, well, it's not, it could be dependent on how well the Newtek NDI works. For those of you that just parachuted to planet Earth, Newtek has designed this new protocol that allows video and audio sources, for that matter, to be shared over a local area network with zero or practically zero latency. So I can have a PC in my LAN here that might be, I don't know, 500 yards away if my LAN reaches that far. And that PC might have a camera attached to it, and I can access that camera here as if it were physically attached to my PC. Pretty cool. So there are lots of great opportunities about that. In fact, let's talk about that a little bit, because I heard from my good friend Andrew from Australia, and Andrew was it was one of these what do you call it, Facebook messages. So it pops up, and of course he and I are 15 hours apart, so those things pop up at all times, day and night, when we're chatting back and forth. And anyway, Andrew said that he had gotten the Newtek SDK and the toolkit that allowed him to play around with the NDI, and that he was able to get NDI to run not just over his LAN, but over his wireless network, over his Wi-Fi. He was able to get a camera. No, I take that back. It wasn't a camera. It was a video, because apparently the camera thing is either not working yet or requires different software. But he was able to capture a video with NDI on one PC and have it show up on a wireless Wi-Fi enabled laptop with zero latency, no frame rate problems, good color, very promising, very promising. Now, it's going to kill the Wi-Fi. If it's, if your Wi-Fi has got a rated speed of 300 megs, then it's probably more like, 220. And, one camera could be anywhere from 50 to 100 megs. So take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt, especially since I haven't even tried it. This is Andrew's report. So we'll blame it on Andrew, right? Yeah. Is Andrew here yet? No, he's not here. So we can definitely blame it on Andrew. Definitely blame it on Andrew. But it's going to be interesting and fun to play with that and to see. My hope is that you can capture remote Skype windows from other PCs that are not even physically connected to your PC, and then be able to bring in the audio and the video from Skype, and then find some sort of return path back to Skype. Now, apparently Skype will recognize the NDI as a video source, and I think as an audio source. So when you go into Skype and you do the drop down to select your camera, your webcam, or your your virtual video device from Windows or Wirecast or excuse me, from vMix or Wirecast or VidBlaster, that Skype will then also recognize an NDI source. So that's pretty cool. So we'll want to take a good look at that when the time comes, as we begin to unfold that. Let's see. I want to update you on our camera-mounted monitor project. It's coming along well. We're not done yet, but we're there. And I've got a video I want to show you on that in just a minute. And also, we did a report a while back on the StarTech PEXUSB3S44V. And I should have had that on a graphic for you. I'm sorry. Anyway, that's the StarTech 4-port USB 3 card, where each one of the 4 USB 3 ports has its own controller. Now, they make an inexpensive card that has 4 USB 3 ports on it, but the important news about this card is that each port has its own controller. Therefore, each port has got dedicated 5 gigs. And let's see, I don't have the card in front of me, but I do have the box. You can see the little card down there. In fact, better than that, I've got a picture. So let's just roll right into that right now. We'll roll right into that. And this is the card. And you can see that it is a PCIe card, and I guess that's the 4-lane bus. You can see the USB 3 ports are mounted horizontally, and yes, that is a little bit of a problem. I've had to take a Dremel tool and carve out some cases to get them to fit. Here's another shot of the back plate. As you can tell, the back plate is pretty big, which means, yes, it does come with a miniature or a short form back plate, and allows you to be able to put it in a narrower PC, like a 2U rack mount or something like that. It also, you see the little Molex connector there in the bottom right, and then the SATA power connector on the bottom left. So you can get power so that each one of the 4 ports can actually be a charging port as well as just a data port. Interesting thing about this critter is that I had spec'd it in a PC that I was building, and actually spec'd 2 of them and tested it in my test bed here with 2 of them, and I guess it's a Z97 based chipset in the test bed. And I wanted to, in the final build it based on an X99 chipset and use the 6-core processor just for a little extra headroom. And what I found out is that the card, the StarTech card, will not install on this particular X99 motherboard. Now, I haven't bought a lot of motherboards to see, will it work in every single X99? But I was using the AS Rock X99 Extreme 4 motherboard, and the cards would not, the drivers would not install. They would get up to the point of installing and then just say, no, we don't think we're going to do that. We're not going to do that. Interesting thing I will say, though, is I talked to the StarTech tech support guys, and I did the little chat thing, where you type your question and then they type back, and you type back and forth, which is a real pain in the patoot. But they were very sharp. I mean, they didn't fix the problem, so I guess maybe I should tell you that right off the bat. But I ended up getting a phone call from one of them, and he said, I want to remote into your PC, and I want to check this, and I want to check that. And so I let him. Generally, I'm not going to let people in that I don't know, but they seemed like they knew what they were talking about. And he tried to force the drivers to install a couple different ways, and wasn't able to do it. But I was really impressed with what he knew, and that he'd kind of gone off the tech support protocol page, and he was freelancing a little bit, which I appreciated. You know, fortunately it didn't break anything. Unfortunately, it didn't fix anything. So I've got a couple other tricks I want to try with this before I abandon it completely. I couldn't even tell with the X99 processor, I mean X99 motherboard, what the firmware was on this card. So I'm going to put it back into the test bed and check the firmware. And if the firmware is not updated, I'm going to update that. Then I'll put it back into the X99 motherboard and see if it works there. That's a long introduction to say that I had to go away from this card in order to accomplish my purpose. I looked online, and I was pretty crafty for once. I not only did I look about compatibility here, but I looked on compatibility with the drivers, and it doesn't tell you what the drivers are. It's some funny name, like a French name or something. Yeah, it's not even written on the back of the box in French. But I'll get it, and I'll put it in the show notes if you're watching on YouTube, what the name of that driver is. And so I went out to try to find another 4-port USB 3 PCIe card where each port has its own controller, and it's not powered. I mean, it's not run by this particular brand of driver, which is problematic. And what I found was a lot of the cards that are out there have the right specs, but they also have that one particular driver. And so I said, it's not working on this one. Why would I think it would work on one that I don't have? But I did find one by a company called SONET. Now, SONET may be SONET, don't know. I'm just a reader, not a pronouncer. But SONET has got the Allegro Pro USB 3 PCIe. And yes, you're right, I have a picture. And let's see, where's the picture? There's the picture. So that's a neat little card. Looks like that one's a 4-lane card as well. It's PCIe, and you notice the USB arrangement. Aha! Nicer USB 3 arrangement. Whoops, that's the wrong card. So don't pay any attention to that picture so far as the PCIe connectors are concerned, or the card itself, but it does give you a little bit of a look. Let's go back to the other picture. There we go. It gives you a little bit of a look as to the arrangement of the USB 3s. Now compare that with this one, and you can tell right away that the Allegro Pro will not fit in a short form situation, but you also don't have to make carvings on your case in order to get it to work. So that is interesting. Now, we'll go back to the StarTech here for just a second. This is the StarTech PEXUSB 3S44V, and it seems to work real well on everything except the X99 chipset motherboards, and it retails at about $80. The Allegro Pro appears to work beautifully with the X99 chipset, but it's $120. So it's 50% more, but if you're stuck with an X99 chipset and this is what you want, then you're going to have to pay an extra $40 for it. But and it works, and I'll test that in the Z97. That's a good idea. We'll check that in the Z97 motherboard and make sure that that's working okay. So that's the story on the. I think if you're looking for the video from before, we called it the poor man's capture card. We did it about 2 months ago, something like that. It's on YouTube. So if you're having some problems, if you bought the StarTech and you wanted to use that and you found out, oh, it's not installing the driver, you don't have to abandon the project, but you do have to pay $40 more to get the Allegro Pro USB 3.0 PCIe card. They look great. The Allegro Pro purports to work in a Thunderbolt extension box. The StarTech doesn't, but that doesn't mean it won't. Actually, I think I've got a Thunderbolt box around here. I might try the StarTech in there just to see, and I'll let you know what I find out. So that's the, I think we're going to call that Tom's Bag of Tricks segment right there. Moving right along, let's talk a little bit about the camera mount project. The idea behind the camera mount project was, the camera mounted monitor, was that so many folks are streaming sports, and it would apply to more than just sports, but let's just say sports for general, and are using camcorders. What I used for years and still do is the Canon Vixia HF-R100, Canon Vixia HF-R200, Canon Vixia HF-R100. Those are cameras that Canon doesn't sell anymore. Where'd I get them? I'm a cheapskate. I bought them off of eBay. I think the cheapest one I got was one of the 100s for $100, and the 200 cost me about $120. But I wanted to have some extra cameras, and it's been great to have them. You can buy the 600, which is the latest rendition in this series, off of Amazon, brand new in the box, never been used, for I think $270 was the last time I saw it, and actually before Christmas they were down below $200. So it's a great camera. Why am I telling you the story? Because the video screen on it is really tiny, and if you're going to video sports for any period of time, like an hour, then you're going to hope that somebody else comes and relieves you. That's what you're going to, and the next time you're going to find somebody else to do cameras. And that's why the big, ESPN, CBS, NBC, ABC Sports, all of those have big monitors on the cameras so that the cameramen don't, burn out because they're doing a 3-hour baseball game or something like that. So my concept was to go ahead and to mount a monitor on top of the camera. And let's see, here's a shot. Is this a static shot? Nope, that's a live shot. Okay, that's a live shot. And you can see the camera, it's just the Canon. Got a little bracket, I think cost me $12 from Amazon. And I'll put that in the show notes. And then the little 7-inch monitor on top of it, I got off of eBay. I think it's actually billed as a backup camera monitor. It doesn't come with the camera, but it comes with a bunch of different wires. And this is as far as I'd gotten with the project last week, was to get the camera mounted. The second part of the project was to get power to it so that the monitor would actually come on. And the third part was to get signal to it so that it would actually show up. And I did that earlier, and I made a video of it. So let me cue up that video. Now, what I found in pre-show, bear with me here, what I found in pre-show was that the video echoed if I kept my mic on, and I didn't have time to troubleshoot it, so I'm just going to turn my mic off, and I'll watch along with you guys. So let me get that queued up just right, and we'll take it away. So I'll be back in just a sec. Okay, this is what it looks like. You can see this is the camera's LED here, and then the 7.5-inch LED here, the empty chair, of course, in front of it. These were the trick, and this was a little connector that I bought online, that connected up to the power supply that I already had. And we can see this is the connection. Oops, right there. And that gave me power to the monitor. And then the monitor has a long cable going to it. This is intended, I think, as a backup camera in a car, so we'd have to do something with the cable. And then it gives you the ability to connect into two video sources. And this is just the video source that came with the camera that plugs into the AV jack in the back. And let's see if we can pull that out one-handed. Yeah, there we go. Get an idea what the jack looks like. Now, what I did find out in this process is that the HDMI cannot be connected at the same time because it will do either or. So, in order to make this effective, I think I'm going to have to get an HDMI monitor and then split my HDMI signal, or else find an HDMI monitor that has pass-through. So, we would say this is somewhat successful. If we were doing standard definition, this would be perfect. You get a good shot of the little bracket right there. Whoops. And that's the bracket that allows this little device to be connected to the camera. So we've got a couple of different moving parts there and some not moving parts. But that's the update on this project. Not really out of the woods yet. Okay, so I think you get the hang of it. Got to go a different route on the connection. In fact, I think what it really means is I've got to go a different way on the monitor. If I was just recording video but not trying to stream, I think it would be fine, no problems. Or if I was doing a standard definition stream and I could just split that, split the signal, you know, with an RCA, you know, single to double kind of thing, a little splitter. That would work. But really the thing that was the coolest were these little guys. And, you know, one of them for the female side, actually that's the male side, and one for the female side. And they had, you know, a common and a ground on each one, and they're actually marked plus and minus. And then they just pop in together. And for me, it was beautiful because it allowed me to be able to use, you know, everybody's got, anybody that's been around for a while has got a whole box full of these little little wall warts, little power warts. And this one that happened to work with that monitor is from Garrity Industries, a Class 2 power supply, model HK41U-12-500. And it has an output of 12 volts DC at 500 milliamps, which is really interesting because I tried another one earlier that was output of 12 volts DC at 0.5 amps. Thought that was the same, but maybe it missed, or maybe it's on the male end where it didn't hook up right. So anyway, that one didn't work. This one did. I suspect it's probably the connector that's the deal. But hey, if the connector doesn't work, cut it off. Put one of those little jobbies on there, and you will be good to go. So stay tuned to the camera mount project. In fact, I think I'm going to use this with the local high school. They do a lot of sports video, and they only use the standard definition at this point. So we can pop that setup on there, I think, pretty easily, and at least show it off and maybe make them want one. I figure, you know, I've got maybe $50 in the whole rig between these guys. I had to buy a bag of them. I couldn't buy just one or two. Well, I could, but it was going to be $12 shipping, and I could get the whole bag for $9 with, you know, $3 shipping or something like that. So it worked out, and I've got them for future use. But in fact, if you're doing a project and you need a few of these, let me know. I've got some spares. But it's nice to have that, and you figure that the video camera will come with the jack that you saw, the 3.5 millimeter jack that'll come with the camera, or you can pick those up on eBay for about $5. And then all you need is an RCA splitter, and then of course the monitor, and then a power supply to the monitor. Now the only reason I was using this is because the back plate battery holder hadn't come in yet, and my guess is that it's going to come in. Actually, I think the one I had just has bare wires, so I'm going to need to add one of these guys to it in order to make it work. All right, so let's get that out of the way. So that's the update on the camera-mounted monitor, and I think we've got that covered. Let's see. Edward says in the chat that an HDMI splitter and a cheap HDMI to composite splitter would be a bit less than that BM Video Assist. Not sure what he's saying there. Maybe self autocorrect took over. But I like his idea of converting the HDMI or splitting it and then converting one leg to composite, and that would allow me to use the same monitor. The thing that, excuse me, at some point there comes a time when you've got a splitter and a transition and a connector and this, and you've got this wad of cable there, and it just like, oh golly, I just want to cut this and then cut this and throw all that away and just hook it together. I wish we could do that. And so the elegance of an HDMI monitor that has HDMI in and then maybe a pass through of HDMI, that appeals to me from a simplicity standpoint. And I've been through this a ton. In fact, I went through this in pre-show today, or in pre-show. The more things you've got going on, the more connections that you're making, the more opportunities you have for something to go wrong. It's kind of like the lottery, but in reverse. The more tickets you buy, the more likely you are. You're not going to win it anyway, but at least statistically, the more likely you are to win it. I was looking it up the other day, the big Powerball that was out there. I mean, you had a 1 in 30 billion chance of winning, but if you bought 2 tickets, now you've got a 1 in 15 billion chance of winning. You've doubled your odds. Well, each time you put another connection in something like this, you're increasing your odds that something's going to go wrong somewhere. Something's going to come unplugged, a wire's going to pop out, something's just going to make a bad connection and not work. In pre-show, somebody was commenting just a minute ago about the rubber band on the camera, and if you were observant like she was, you noticed a rubber band in there. Well, the rubber band is keeping the HDMI cable, when it's connected, at a certain angle so that it'll make good connection inside the camera. And if you've done anything with HDMI cameras over a long period of time, you know that eventually the little HDMI socket just gets all loosey-goosey, and you have to find that certain space where it will make a good connection. And that's what's happened with this little Canon Vixia HF-R100. About time for me to retire it too. Well, no, that one's got a rubber band on it too. Look over at the 200. The 200 looks like it's still hanging in there. But at some point, these guys end up being disposable cameras. And if you're like me, as you're in this kind of streaming thing, you're starting out with what you can afford. Because you've got what you can afford right here and then kind of what you want right here. And sometimes, sometimes I just saw a note in the chat room where Dave said, if I win the lottery, I'll still watch you, Tom. Thank you, Dave. Oh, that tickles me. But sometimes what we want gets cheaper and cheaper, or else we find something that we really want that's less expensive. But really, what happens over time is we try the cheap things and they're not satisfactory, and so we keep kind of going up the ladder a little bit until we get to where we want to be, or until we get to some sort of acceptable level. It may not be everything, you know, it may not be the 4K camera that we dream of, but it's HD and it's good enough for now until later, until we move up to the next tier. So I think this is a good solution at this tier. And, you know, you may say, okay, well, you know, what else is going on? Well, I got a kid in college, you know, I can't spend all my money on these toys. But I'm home every night. That's one thing to be said about it. Okay, well, enough of this chitter chatter. So I'm going to post some specs on some of this stuff where you can get them. I'll post the specs on the Allegro and the StarTech so that you'll have that, and we'll keep you posted too on how the NDI is doing and all the other little projects that we've got going on here in the workshop. Yeah. Those of you that are watching us live, please hang around for the afterglow post show. And those of you that are watching on YouTube, if you've made it this far, go ahead and subscribe. I mean, you're obviously a glutton for punishment. So hit that subscribe button, and you know, you can watch us every week. So, well, darn, I guess we've come to the end of another show. I'm sorry. I've enjoyed it. I hope you have. And I hope you'll join me again next week on Streaming Idiots when we, what are we going to do? We don't know yet. Anyway, have a great week. Take care.